Hi folks, and welcome back to another fly tying tutorial, something a little bit different this week. So you'll heard me joke about the fly tying police quite often, certainly on Facebook. I like to wind people up a little bit, but it's all in good fun. But what I want to do today is just tie a fly and make it up as I go along. You don't have to follow recipes. And I've had a lot of questions recently about the dubbing I'm using, the hackles I use, the wire ribs I use. I use what I've got, and I would encourage you to do the same. So I'm going to show you how I put this together, and without further ado, let's get into it. The hook in the vise is a Hanak H330 barbless hook. This one's at size 8. It's finished in bronze and it's on a medium wire. Now the thread I'm going to be using today is going to be the trout line sumo thread. It's at 50 denier. As you can see, it's white. Now when I was sat down to tie these flies, I was sitting down to tie a load of crunchers, but in the end I got carried away and I ended up just doing my own thing, and that's when I came up with the idea of doing this video. So we'll go through the tying of this, and I think it's really important because not everyone can go out and buy the flosses and buy the wires, and capes are certainly a lot of money, so you've got to try and use what you've got, and that's how I've got by for many years, just using what I've got. So we're going to start with some of this floss. It's red, apparently. Looks more like a pinky colour to me, but Simplify have called it fluorescent red. And what I want to do is, just as the hook starts to bend, I'm going to catch the floss in and I'm going to bring it round the curve of the hook, like so. I'm just going to stop there and I'll come up, but I want to take this tag end away. Now once I've taken the tag end away, I am going to come back with my floss and just make sure that tag end's caught in there. I'm going to put a few turns just at the bottom here, which is going to create the little hot spot that you've seen. And what I can do is I can cast this off for the moment. Well, for good actually, we're not going to use this anymore. And just cut it away. Don't be tempted to rip this, because what you end up with is a big hairy bunch of fibres that you don't really want. So always use your scissors. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come in just at the very bottom here with a little bit of UV resin. And what I want to do is just give that a little bulbous look, as well as it does change the colour. So with the addition of UV resin, it will slightly change the colour of the materials you're using. But you don't have to use this flow red. You can use pink, red, green, whatever floats your boat really. It's just to act as a hot spot. So once I've cured that off, I can then come in with my primary thread, which was the sumo thread from Troutline in white. I'm just going to get some super glue onto the shank of the hook and catch him behind the eye. Yeah, I think there's too many people get a wee bit too preoccupied with patterns from the 1800s that were written in a book. They've got their place, don't get me wrong, but you should be able to tie whatever you like, in my humble opinion, and nobody should be judging you for it. Next thing I'm going to do is catch in my wire rib, and I'm using some 0.1mm gold wire, and I'm going to just bring my thread back up a bit to catch that in up near the top of the hook. I tied a cruncher ages ago on the channel now, but and I got a lot of good feedback about what I was doing wrong, and I've tried to incorporate that in my cruncher since, but it's still not done me any good. It's a fly that seems to, everyone's got their bogey flies, and it seems the cruncher is the one for me. I just can't seem to make it work particularly well, and this fly is based off the famous cruncher pattern. Oops, forgot to show you what I'm using here. This is Mirage Opal. It's quite heavy tinsel, and I'm just going to catch that in at the top here. Now let's just go all the way down to where my little UV bump is. Just lift it up to check, probably get another couple of turns in there. Then I'm going to come all the way back up to the top. Now when I get to the top of the eye here, I'm going to get myself several extra turns in. And before I bring the oval tinsel up, I am going to get out this dreaded super glue and just give the shank a little coat. And that will help keep that oval tinsel down onto the shank of the hook. So as I use the rotary function, I'm just going to make sure it joins the hot butt there where I want it. That's okay. And because I'm using quite a wide tinsel here, I'm able to cover the shank fairly quickly. I'm obviously slowing everything down a little bit for tutorial purposes, but when you're using this wider stuff, it's a very quick affair to cover the shank of a hook. It gives a great effect, the old Oppo Mirage. There's nothing quite like it actually. Then I'll catch that in like so. Now you'll notice I am quite far back for the eye, and the reason for that is the other materials I'm tying in need that space. So I'm just going to tidy up that tag, and before I go on, I'm going to get a little bit of wax onto my nano silk here, and this is for the benefit of holding in the hackle. Now what I'm using here is, I've got a lovely cape here, as I was saying. I did buy this, it was not a cheap cape, I might add. Capes seldom are. Anything that's worth having is seldom cheap when it comes to fly tying. That's why I would always encourage you to use what you've got. So I'm going to catch that just in. Let's come back a second. So you might well notice I've stripped out one side of the hackle here, and that's on purpose. I don't want it too heavily dressed, this one. So I've stripped out that one side of the hackle. Just going to catch that in with a couple of turns. Once I'm content it's in position, I can lock that into place. And then grab my hackle pliers, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get pretty much one turn right on top of each other, and then I can come back. Just want it quite sparse, not too close together. I'm leaving about 2 to 3 millimeters between turns. That one didn't go down right, so I'm going to come back. Don't be afraid to go back. If you've made an error or you're not happy, just go back. It's your time, it costs you nothing. All the way down. I'll get one more turn to come, and I'm aiming for where I tied in the wire rib. And once I see that, I can grab my wire and I can catch in that tag end. Now I'm just going to lay that on the side of my vise while I come in and bring my gold wire rib up. Bear with me as we get near the top. My hackle pliers are trying to jump off the vise. Just don't want to catch in them fibres there. They're trying to sneak around. Let's just ease them fibres back, and then I can come up and catch in my wire rib. Now 2 or 3 turns, couple of turns in front, and I'm able to then twist away the wire. I'm coming with my scissors again. Don't be tempted to just pull away that hackle, it will make it weak and it could come undone. Now before I go on, I'm going to just put my brush through the hackles just to loosen up any that are trapped on the wire and get it out of the way, and that's looking not too shabby. So the next thing then, we're going to take one of the feathers out of this cape here, and we're going to create the front hackle. Now I've got one that I've just plucked, and what I'm going to do is use my hackle pliers just to catch that in on the tip. Now this is quite an old cape despite the number of feathers that you see left in it, and the tip is quite weak. So once I've got my Christmas tree effect here, I can take my hackle pliers away and simply trim, so I've got something to tie in there. The next thing, again, a little bit of wax never hurt. We're going to just catch that in at the tip, a couple of turns, then I'll tidy that up at the front, and I'm going to bring my thread all the way back to the hackle, and then I'm going to bring it all the way forward to the eye. So I can then grab my hackle pliers and just gently ease the fibres back. Now obviously there's lots of different techniques involved with fly tying, time honoured techniques, but you can utilise them for creating your own patterns. Now if you've got something that you're prepared to share, because a lot of the patterns that I've tied over the years you've never seen tied in a video, because I used to do quite a bit of competition fishing and they were sort of like secret, if you like. I mean, there's very little of that now, but back in the day when I took it a little bit more seriously, I would keep some patterns as a close hold. Not so much nowadays. But if you've got something and you're prepared to share, please don't hesitate to let me know. I might even have a go at tying it. So I'm just easing these feathers back all the way to the eye of the hook. Then I can catch that in. Like so. I'm going to release my hackle pliers, just going to wet my thumb and forefinger, slick everything back. I'm going to just make sure that is caught in. Now I don't want a huge head on this fly, but I want enough as it can be seen. Now if you remember the original one we had in the vise, if I can find it, it's got a black head. Now I could simply whip finish here and cast on black thread, or I could simply just leave the head white. Nobody would be any the wiser. But another solution is just a black marker pen. So if you just get the black marker pen and get some colour onto your thread. And when I first started the channel, I used to be a massive fan of this, because I only had a few threads and I didn't want to go out and buy all the different coloured threads. I'm lucky now that people are very generous and send me them, but it's not always an option for a lot of folks. Buying whatever you want or just ordering whatever you want, you've got to try and be as frugal as possible, because the important thing's going fishing, and that can cost a lot of money. So if you can save money on the fly tying, please do. Just remember, there is no rules when it comes to fly tying. You can tie whatever you like with whatever materials you want, and you might end up making the next Sawyer's killer bug, who knows. But don't be afraid to defy the fly tying police and give something new a go. Now the last thing then, just to finish the fly off before it goes in the box, I'm just going to come in with my toothbrush here and I'm going to tidy that up. Well, I say box, it will go in front of the camera first of all to create the thumbnail, but there we go. We have I suppose you could call it a snatcher-esque type fly, but the fly tying police would shoot me for calling this a snatcher, so we'll just call it a wet fly. How's that? That might satisfy everyone. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.